You're just in time to lead some kirtan if you'd like.
I'm here to serve.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Hare Krishna.
Om Jnanatirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Miritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namaste Krishna Aya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Vanaprastha. Finally, I
Shri
got that.
Advaita Gadadhar
It's been going on for quite
Shivasadi
many weeks.
Gaura
I am doing it
Bhakta
for
Vrinda Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jai Om Vishnupad Paraman Suparivraj Kacharya Ashtotar Satashi Shrimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kunigiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Tham Ki Jai Navadip Tham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari. Welcome. Om Jnana Timidantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun militam jena tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mayam Dadati Shapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamstra Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Shahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Shadvaitam Shavadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamstra Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Deen Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kam Shana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prashabh Bhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Kori Priye Vansha Kolpatirubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Again, welcome to all. I'll start by reading something from Srila Prabhupada. This is from a lecture in Los Angeles. Now, the question may be, this is 1973, such a king, why he should retire? That question was raised by the Naimisharanya rishis about Parikshit Maharaj. But the answer is that you have to do your duty. So long you must try your best to do things according to the prescription, according to the injunction. But it is also your duty to retire from family life. Therefore, Yudhishthira Maharaj, it is not that he has to work up to the end point of his life. No, the life is divided. That is Vedic civilization. Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas. So at the end of life, one must retire from family life. Therefore, Yudhishthira Maharaj decided, now things are deteriorating. But that was taken care of. Parikshit Maharaj, his next descendant. That is king's duty. But so far, Yudhishthira Maharaj is concerned, he did not like to bother anymore because he has his personal duty also. That is retirement. Completely engage himself to the service of the Lord. So everyone should retire at a certain age. Panchashordvam panam vrajet. As soon as one is 50 years old, he must retire. He must retire. Not that he will say, I have got this duty, that duty, that duty. No. Within this age, whatever duty you can perform, that's all right. Next, to retire. That is Vedic civilization. So Yudhishthira Maharaj concluded to retire from the service. And then another lecture on the same theme, just briefly. 2 months later, it doesn't matter whether you have finished your duty or not. It doesn't matter. You must retire. And then, after being trained for some time, being retired from family life, living secluded life, not exactly secluded, but detached from family life. Let the elderly sons, daughters, they can take care of the family, and the husband, wife, they travel in different places of pilgrimage. Again, they come for some time, but without any attachment, as guests in the house of his son. In this way, when he is trained up, then he says to the wife, now you live with your sons, they will take care of you. I am taking sannyas. All right, so that's our opening meditation from Srila Prabhupada. In our first week, or first few meetings, I really set the agenda, what topics to cover. And now I'm more depending on you to direct me and give me your thoughts about what you'd like to talk about. You can report things you've noticed in Srila Prabhupada's books. You can offer your reflections or realizations. You can share with us things that you've decided to do, or you can raise any other relevant topic, and that would be most welcome to get us started off.
Maharaj, I just found something that I thought was very interesting. This was in the light of the Bhagavat. And so, as far as I know, Prabhupada was writing Light of the Bhagavat when he was still in India. Is that correct?
Yes.
So this is in the Light of the Bhagavat, this is text 37. And the verses that he's taking off on writing a purport on, he says, with the inauguration of the autumn season, the rough sea becomes calm and quiet, just like a philosopher after self-realization who is no longer troubled by the modes of nature. And at the end of the purport, Prabhupada says, according to the Varnashram principle, it is compulsory that one retire after the age of 50 without considering other circumstances. Business offices close at a fixed hour, no matter what balance of work remains. Similarly, after the age of 50, one must retire from the active external life and devote oneself to the introspective cultivation of the human spirit. And then he goes on, this is highly relevant since it's an election year in the United States. This retirement must be compulsory so that foolish old men will no longer disturb the peaceful progress of spiritual culture. In the modern democratic government, no one should be elected after the age of 50. Otherwise, the storm of the ocean of nescience cannot be stopped to allow the ships and boats to sail back to Godhead. The greatest enemies of progressive spiritual culture and human society are the old fossils of political parties who are blind themselves and who try to lead other blind men. They bring about disaster in a peaceful human society. The members of the younger generation are not as stupid as the old politicians, and therefore by state law, the foolish old politicians must retire from active life at the age of 50.
Try. A wonderful practical proposal. When they ask us what our thoughts are about the national elections, we're ready for them. I guess that's rain, isn't it? Yes. Okay. I wonder whether I have to close a window or two.
Well, in case you have to close a window, I just wanted to say what my thoughts were on that.
Yes, please.
I like the way he puts it. He says, business offices close at a certain hour, no matter what balance of work remains. I like that as a very practical example that, sometimes you get to the place and it's closed. That's just the way it is. And it's nice to think of the phases of life in that way, that, well, now you're at a certain age, it's just the way it is. It's time to close up shop and do something else.
Exactly.
And I don't know of anywhere else here on this Sangha is there so much active, thoughtful encouragement in this regard. Usually the tendency is to just kind of go on, do your thing. And I was thinking about this just a while back. I think I was speaking to Vrajavihari Prabhu about this. And he had raised not an objection, but just an observation that it had taken him so many years just to develop a pattern of life that worked for him, that was sustainable and practical. And it took him after the age of 50 to just get his lifestyle together to the point where things are in the right place and things are scheduled properly. And the whole idea of Vanaprastha seems to just throw that to the wind and no, you're supposed to now change your course. But then I thought if anyone had brought that question up before Your Holiness, the reminder would immediately be there. Well, you're going to die and you don't know when, so why not get ready immediately?
Mm. Yeah. In one sense, every grahasta spends so much time getting things together. And just when things seem to be a little together, perhaps, he's told, now get out by the age of 50. So, and there's another quotation, I didn't read it today, but Prabhupada was saying that you may think that now everything is nice, but you have to get out. It's a radical proposal, you know. This is not what we put in, what's that promotional magazine, you know, the Hare Krishna Smiling Family magazine that temples are urged to take. You know, I don't think there's a word there about retirement, what to speak of compulsory retirement. But this is an integral part of our culture. And rather than hide it, I saw some statistic just the other day that I think 50% of the United States population is in their, you know, old. The 60s generation and even 70s generation is now old. So, and that's like 50% of the population is what you call elderly. So how relevant our message is, who's talking to these people, who's offering them any clear understanding of what they should do at this point in their lives. So it's relevant for us and it's relevant for them. And it's relevant for the president and presidential hopefuls. Thank you very much for that. More?
My Haribo Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
My wife was just commenting, saying even among the non-devotees, as you were pointing out, such a high percentage are elderly. But even among them, in our business travels over the years, we've noticed how many have taken to a semi-nomadic life. They've kind of pulled away from hearth and home. They want to travel around and in an RV or something, and they just try to get away from a lot. They've unloaded a lot of the heavier responsibilities of a big house, and they move into a smaller house. There's a natural tendency to go in that direction when you realize you don't need all this stuff.
Yeah, that's very true. There's I think it's probably crimped a little bit now by high petrol prices, but still that there's been a major movement in that direction toward old people just pulling up stakes and getting themselves some vehicle and moving around. And how worthwhile it would be if they knew where to move to and for what purposes. They could make their life so successful. So really we need to, again, how grateful some people might be just to know, what am I supposed to do? I've got this much time left. What am I supposed to do with it? So it's our duty to show what to do, with it, not to just sort of waste your life dwindling, but to grab the opportunity starting from 50 to go out and free oneself from entanglement, and then as it's said, introspection and thoughtfulness about spiritual progress, and if possible, then get out and preach and share this knowledge with others. Yeah, thank you. More?
Well, as for ourselves, we find ourselves in such an odd juncture in our life, because just prior to the COVID-19 outbreak, we moved down to Alachua and embarked on building a house. And then when the virus hit, we realized we had to make it smaller. And then as the virus got worse, we realized that it had all kinds of problems with the building process, which it has. I mean, we're still proceeding with that, but I find myself in violation of all of these statements with Prabhupada, because I'm way past 50. And I'm more entangled in certain respects than ever. But at the same time, I expect this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to pull up stakes, pull up attachments, and utilize whatever the remainder is, whatever it is. I know it's not a lot for the proper purpose of self-realization and Krishna consciousness. So, I don't think I'm alone in this regard. I think there are a lot of devotees who are in a similar pickle and are trying to figure it out. And classes have been very, very helpful for illuminating that subject.
Good. Yeah, this sangha of devotees who are thinking this way is so enriching, and can be extended, and not necessarily on this channel, but can be extended, so that we ask one another, what are your plans for your retirement in a spiritual way, spiritual context. Great. While I'm thinking of it, let me share with you something. In part as an outgrowth of this seminar, Vamshidhari Gopal Prabhu, who's here, has agreed to do a seminar, Personal Financial Planning for Devotees, September 13th, 20th, 27th, and 4th, which addresses itself to some of the questions that have arisen in our sessions about how to set things up so that there'll be security for the wife and so on, and one won't be sort of chained to financial burdens. One will have the freedom to act as a Vanaprastha. So that seminar is coming up. It'll be announced on the Tuaco channel tonight or soon. Those of us who are on this session here are perhaps a little old for this seminar. We're already wherever we are. So I think, and Vamshidhari Prabhu can speak to this, I think we're especially interested in inviting younger people to this seminar so that they can plan their affairs, younger married people, so that they can plan things in such a way that 20 or 25 years hence, or 15, however many, they'll be in a decent position, practically speaking, for Vanaprastha life. From one point of view, well, whatever the position is, I have to leave. And from another point of view, as we've discussed, if we can have our material affairs lined up, then it's more conducive, more helpful, less disruptive. Disruptive or not, I have to leave, but better if we can have things well set up. Am I right, Vamsidhari Prabhu, as far as
Yes.
whom we're aiming at?
Yeah, yes, Maharaj, like you are right that it will be helpful for younger generation implement. But I think it's helpful for everyone in a sense that it will create awareness for everyone, and like older generation can guide other devotees or their children
Yeah.
or anybody else who they come in contact with. So especially it would be helpful for everyone to hear and get some insights into what I'm going to share, and they can pass it on to others even if it is not applicable for them.
Yeah, I personally plan to attend with that in mind, that I'm not really worried about my financial obligations,
Right.
but to be able to guide others, I'm looking forward to your seminar. So, yeah, very good point. Thank you.
Yeah, because most of the senior devotees in our community are grahasthas. They have their children, grandchildren. So if they hear, it will be beneficial for them at least. Like they can pass it on to younger generation, like how they can plan their life so that whatever difficulties they went through, the next generation does not go through the same.
Yeah, those who missed my seminar, How to Be Happy Forever by Skipping Family Life, should certainly attend this seminar.
Maharaj, Athena has a question.
Yes, Athena always has a question. Let's hear it.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I usually have a conflict during this time, and I don't today, so I'm jumping right in. I hope it's not too aggressive or aggressive. You know, these sessions are... my question, I apologize, going back to how you opened. When I think of some really wonderful devotees, if I could name some, for example, Raghunath, he has a 5-year-old son, and his oldest biological child is 15, and he's in 50. It seems like it would be really unbeautiful if he left now, given how young his children are. Maybe I think of it as they made a choice 5-6 years ago to have another child, and it would just be wrong to give up and walk away and even leave his wife to take care of all his children. I don't know if this is a special circumstance. Your opening said, who cares of all the other duties? Leave. If you comment on that, and I know
that was Prabhupada, not me.
It's the Prabhupada. I don't know if that's just a general statement. Even when we look at some families who have autistic children or Down syndrome, they need help for the rest of their life, dedicated to taking care of these souls. It seems like it would be wrong to just pick up and leave the children who need their help. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Well, there's several answers here. One is, of course, that I'm giving the standard instruction, and how it may apply in a particular case has to be considered. But this is the standard advice, the standard injunction, in fact. Vijay, one must do this. Now, then we come to individual cases. So that's the first point. Second point, for those who've not yet come to the age of 50 or later, these understandings are valuable so that they can plan. If I'm supposed to leave at 50, should I have a child at 45 or 40 even? So we talked about this in an earlier session. If this understanding becomes general, if it becomes well understood in the society that at the age of 50, what we're supposed to do is leave, that pushes family life to an earlier time frame. It argues against this modern norm of placing education and career first, and then getting married at the age of 30 something and having children when you're 35 or 40. It argues back in the Vedic direction, getting married at, like for the girls, 16, 18, for the guys a little bit later, but not terribly, 22, thereabouts. So that's, like a planning issue, that if we hear this message early enough, then we can think, well, here's how I should be planning. That's the second issue, or the second response. Third response is that, it would be terrible for me to skip out on duties, and if I have a child with Down syndrome, or, there 1,000 more circumstances could be brought forward. But one thing is, and it's sure, we're going to have to leave anyway. And we don't know when. And what will happen? What will happen to my child with Down syndrome? What will happen to my wife with diabetes and, whatever else she's got? What will happen? What will happen? All of these questions where we think, well, I can't leave because these people are all dependent on me. They'll have to fend for themselves without me if I'm kicked out. Now, if you'll give me 2 minutes, I'm just going to check my windows because the rain is getting a little strong here. I'll be right back. Good thing I did. One window was right in the line of fire. So that's the other thing, how will things go on without me? We all think, I can't leave. How will things go on without me? Well, people are involuntarily removed all the time, and the world goes on. So that's another thought. Okay?
Thank you.
And again, these are thoughts about the matter in general. How it applies to any particular person, or how any particular person applies it in his own life, that's a personal decision. It's not for us to have a meeting and decide this person should do this person should do that. It's a matter of personal realization and decision making. Okay, what other thoughts might be popping up here tonight?
Here, Maharaj, here's a quote from Srimad Bhagavatam, which corroborates your statement regarding this being authority. It's from Canto 1, Chapter 15, the Pandavas retire timely, and it's about Maharaj. I'll just read part of the purport if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
The training and education was so imparted, and thus a respectable person like Maharaj Yudhisthira had to leave all family connection for self-realization and going back home, back to Godhead. No king or respectable gentleman would continue family life till the end, because that was considered suicidal and against the interest of the perfection of human life. In order to be free from all family encumbrances and devote oneself 100% in the devotional service of Lord Krishna, this system is always recommended for everyone because it is the path of authority. The Lord instructs in the Bhagavad Gita 1862 that one must become a devotee of the Lord at least at the last stage of one's life. A sincere soul of the Lord like Maharaj Yudhisthira must abide by this instruction of the Lord for his own interest.
Oh, somehow you're muted, Maharaj. I'm going to unmute you. Okay.
Yes, somehow I muted myself. Thank you very much for that. And if there are any other thoughts or reflections on that, they're welcome. And if there's anyone that we don't regularly hear from that might have some thoughts here, everyone is welcome to raise a question or raise a reflection, a thought.
Sankarshan Prabhu has
Happy to be
written
here.
something in the chat box. I could read it or you could read it.
Oh, okay. I had my chat box undisplayed. Thank you. It's hard to find any grahastas outside of broken marriages in ISKCON who have retired from family life at the age of 60, let alone 50. I can think of Dean Bandhu, who has lived in Vrindavan for many years, while his wife has been in Alachua. Well, I had a short list. Let's see if it's easily accessible here. We have Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu, who's, I believe, on this session, who retired timely from family life and is living in the holy place known as the Tuako Temple. Pancharatna is on his way as a real Vanaprastha. Nanda Dulal Prabhu in Mayapur has retired from his medical practice. Bhattahari Prabhu is sort of closed up shop there in Alachua. He and his wife, and they're involved in kirtan and other such things. Jai Gaur Sundar Prabhu and Komodaki are very serious about Vanaprastha life. Atul Krishna, Prithu Shrava, who's one of my heroes, he and his wife have been Vanaprasthas for a long time, traveling and preaching. Yadubara and Madam President of the Bhaktivedanta Manor were really, again, detached. And Lakshmana and her husband Acharya, who are, he's preaching in Colombia, I believe, and she's in Alachua. Janananda Maharaj, who adopted Vanaprastha life and continued on to sannyas. Danavir Maharaj, who adopted the Vanaprastha life and continued on to sannyas. So there have been, sort of a quiet contingent of people who are serious about the retirement and increasing detachment from family life. But I think as a general statement, it's true that it's really, I picked out a small handful of people. I'm sure there are more, but it's not an overwhelming flood of Vanaprasthas, which is what you might expect given that so many devotees joined when they were, in the 1960s, early 70s at a young age. And now they're popping off really. We read in Dandavats, this one's gone, that one's gone, this one's on the way. So I think you're right that we don't see large numbers of retired people, and partly for the reasons stated before that we don't hear about it. It's not really being pushed as it might be. I think you're also right that broken marriages are sort of the most visible way in which couples become detached. I've therefore joked about starting a ISKCON ministry for creative divorce, which would be the Vanaprastha ministry in disguise. you know, in India and Vedic culture, there's retirement, and in Western culture, there's divorce. So if you just use divorce the right way, you decide that forget it, you know, it's not working, she's not happy, she's kicking me out of the house, whatever it is. So let me cry all the way to the forest and be happy for the rest of my life in Krishna service. Athena has a thought, yes?
Hey Krishna's, when Panchatattva read that, I guess, passage, it just made me, the part that I was reflecting on is when he mentioned that one should become a devotee at least by the end of his life. And it made me think of a lecture that Vasudeva Prabhu gave during one of the Srimad Bhagavatam classes. And the example said was, when we are offering to Krishna and our archanam, our deity worship, we're offering him the best fruits, ripe and fresh, juicy. You wouldn't offer Krishna, withered, old, maybe rotten fruit. And his whole point actually was we should give our best years to Krishna if possible, and not just, go through life, whether it be children or education and making a lot of money, and then finally think, oh, then I should give my life to Krishna after I've done all of that. I know, of course, it's through everyone here, it's devotees already and through the end of their lives, but that just comment, that really struck with me when I heard it for the first time, is just give your all and your best to Krishna now. Why wait until later? And of course, in tied to the Vanaprastha, give it even more, I guess, when you retire and take Vanaprastha. But it was just a thought and comment I wanted to share. Thank you. Oh, and you're muted, Maharaj.
And retiring timely also, not waiting till you're, 80, 85, and then saying, I really think I should retire from family life. And, having a little yagya in the old age home. But when you're 50, you have your reserve energy still, and you can really go out there and do something. So that fits with what Vasudeva said also. There's also a thought that occurred to me, maybe it was today, which I had sort of earmarked in my ear to bring up on this conference. And that is the thought that Vanaprastha life is a process that is progressive. That it's not that we adopt the Vanaprastha ashram, and then we sort of set a standard of detachment, and we go on like that for the next 25 years. But it's meant to be a progressive process. A little more detached, a little more detached, a little more detached, more detached. And then Prabhupada here says Vanaprastha and eventually sannyas. So it's even like family life. It's not that you get married and then everything stands still, but you get married and there's development, there's home, there's children, there's career, there's all of that. So, or in student life, there's the development of your education. So in Vanaprastha life, it's progressive. There's meant to be progress toward ever increasing service and ever increasing detachment from family connections. Sankarshan, I heard you wanted to give a seminar titled something like Breaking Relationships in the Spirit of Encouraging the Vanaprastha Ashram. Did that take place? And if so, how did it go? Well, it was actually part of a larger seminar called, or a broader seminar called, what was it called? Psychology 108. And it was sort of an answer to the pop psychology that finds insinuates itself into ISKCON as sort of the source of guidance, of practical guidance for devotees on how to live. So it had themes like, how to break relationships, how to get rid of your inner child, and how to feel bad about yourself, and so on. I think it went well. Panchatattva says, in respect to Vanaprastha as a process, I think there are even more devotees who are older, who are at least on the spectrum of Vanaprastha. I'm thinking of devotees such as Kalakanta Prabhu, Vaisheshika Prabhu. Yeah, I would add like Atmaram Prabhu, Sankarshan Prabhu. Yes, definitely. Devotees who are moving from family life toward greater detachment and greater involvement in preaching and service. And some of whom have, really always had that focus. It's just they incidentally got married someplace along the line, but their focus has always been on service. So yes, I think you're right, Panchatattva Prabhu, definitely. Do we have some?
I had something. I was thinking that you were mentioning in answer to Athena's question that what you're presenting is the standard injunction, the standard scriptural Vedic perspective, and that when it comes to individuals, on a case-by-case basis, people's situations are going to be different. And what it made me think is that for someone who's serious about progressive spiritual life, moving through the various stages of life is a very, very serious business. And just as you said, once someone gets married, for example, it's not that things become static or come to a standstill, but it's a progressive thing. And it seems that if someone is serious about, takes the scripture seriously, then it behooves one to get very serious personal instruction according to their time, place, and circumstance, so that they can, if they're at that stage, move into this ashram with the least amount of difficulty. I was thinking, slightly reluctant to give myself as an example, but I had a very, very unusual experience. My brahmachari life was not what anyone would advise anyone else's brahmachari life to be. I was playing in a rock and roll band, and I was encouraged by my spiritual master to remain in a rock and roll band because it was actually a good, viable, authorized service. But because I had that personal guidance, I was able to make some use of my otherwise misspent youth. And I think for many devotees who are approaching Krishna consciousness from so many different backgrounds, their married life, and what to speak of their Vanaprastha life, will require very careful personal guidance from senior devotees like yourself, perhaps, who can see beyond the immediate present and help that person find their exact place in life when it comes to changing their ashram.
Yeah, our gurus, our sannyasis, our senior devotees, they're all meant for advising our members how to progress in these ways. The holy places also, why are Vanaprasthas advised to go to holy places? Well, to associate with the saintly people who are there, who will be capable of giving that kind of advice. And even the place itself gives that advice. It gives encouragement in different ways to free oneself from family encumbrances and dive deeper into service to Krishna's lotus feet. So yes, guidance is so important and valuable. And just to nitpick, not nitpick, but to make a point, I know you understand this, but you mentioned that, I was sort of reflecting what the Vedic standard is. Actually, it's the standard that Prabhupada was talking about for us. It's not just, well, that was the Vedic standard, but there's another quotation, I think I've offered it a couple of times, where Prabhupada talks about the young people in the Krishna consciousness movement who will eventually, who should eventually become Vanaprasthas and then take sannyas. So it's meant for us. I know you know that. I just wanted to mention it. This is not just something we study from previous ages and Maharaj Prithu and all of that, but it's meant for us.
Along with that, I'm thinking of devotees who have left their body in the company of very advanced devotees. And I want to say that making important steps through the ashrams in the course of the arc of our life, it requires such expert guidance. Like I'm sure that there are people that when we're imagining our ideal departure scenario, we would prefer to have with us over and above anyone else. And I've seen various devotees in that last stage of their lives, and they have very, very senior guidance holding their hand, getting them ready for the next life. And I think we need so much more of that while we're still healthy.
Yeah. It's not that all of a sudden we're supposed to, like, at the last minute, absorb ourselves in Krishna consciousness. But our life is supposed to be supportive of progress, so that at the end we'll be successful. None of these things are easy to focus the mind, to leave the body. All of these things are heavy business, a heavy exam. But our whole life is meant to be molded in such a way that at the end we'll head for the right destination. So starting with brahmachari life, actually, brahmachari gurukule, asandanta gururhitam. Brahmachari life is the training for the future direction, whether one becomes grasta or not. Brahmachari life sets the direction. So brahmachari, grasta, vanaprastha, sannyas. Anyone else who'd like to share something, offer something, ask something?
I'm a little confused, Maharaj.
Tanishta.
Yes. We were saying at some point that we should leave our services behind, but at the same time, once we start Vanaprastha, become involved in, I guess, in some other service.
No, not leave our service, but Prabhupada, I was reading from Prabhupada, our duties, by which Prabhupada meant, I think, family duties. I have this duty, I have that duty, I have to send my second son through college. I have to see to proper this fund and that fund. I have this, I have that. I have to get my daughter married. I have all these things. Those duties, not service. Not that, well, I have to leave book distribution behind because now I'm going to become a Vanaprastha. Not like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're at 55, and we should have retired at 50. No, we're at 7:55, and we want to leave ourselves a few minutes extra so that people can switch over to the Tuako channel and hear from Chadaratma this evening. So we usually end a few minutes early to give people a little time for the transition. So with that, we'll thank all of you for coming. And I think seems like we all still have much to discuss and much to say. So I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Again, you may notice things that Prabhupada says in his lectures or his books, and you might note them down to share with us. You might have thoughts about the things you hear, and you might also have actions that you have in mind to take, or that you do take, that you might want to share with us, or anything else in the way of questions or thoughts or reflections. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hi, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Jaya.
Maharaj.
Thank
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Jaya.
Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Purva Prabhu, obeisances, Haribol,
Yeah.
Jaya.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dukantri, Hari Hari.